What's going on, everyone? Phil here for KO Gaming, and E3 2016 is upon us. Every year, the world's best game developers and game publishers try to strut their stuff amongst the big stage to show us their latest offerings and things that they're working on. This year had absolutely no shortage of highs and lows. In this series, we're going to take a look at my personal picks for some of the worst things that I felt appeared at E3 2016. Now, keep in mind, this is my personal countdown. You can completely disagree with it, which is okay. If you do, be sure to leave a comment and let me know what you think. Without further ado, here we go, the top 10 worst things about E3 this year. Number 10, Titanfall 2. A couple years ago, Titanfall was released, and this was the first of a slew of multiplayer-only, full-priced retail releases that basically had people wondering, gee, I wonder if this will be worth it. Can you actually make a game that's only multiplayer that's worth full retail price? This was the first of that line of games, and therefore tons of hype, tons of marketing budget went into it from Microsoft, and it actually sold tons because people bought into it. However, after just a few weeks to a month, most people got tired of the game, realizing it did not have enough content to actually warrant a full retail release or to warrant more than a few weeks' interest, and the game completely died out after only a couple months. I haven't heard of Titanfall in a million years, yet at E3 2016, here we go with Titanfall 2. So you might ask yourself, why is a sequel being made to a game that died out after only a few weeks or months? Well, the bottom line is the game made tons of money because people didn't realize at the time that these multiplayer-only games aren't really worth it. So now they're making a sequel, and unfortunately, after watching the trailer, all I have to say is, I'm not impressed. All I see that's new in this game is some new melee animations and also a grappling hook that pulls enemies towards you for an instant kill. The game looks almost identical to the first one, and with only 6 new mech types being announced to be in the game, sounds to me like another overpriced $60 dud. Hopefully people don't fall for the same trick twice. Fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not falling for that crap again. Number 9, EA's huge Battlefield 1 multiplayer event right after their press conference at E3. So you might say, wow, we're gonna finally see the 32-player versus 32-player gameplay of Battlefield 1 for the first time. It's one of the most incredibly hyped first-person shooters of the year. I wonder what EA's gonna pull this off. Maybe they had a contest so gamers could play it, or maybe lucky people who were there at E3 got in line and got to play the game. Nope. In a classic move where EA doesn't understand what people actually want, they actually paid celebrities to show up to E3 and play the game, including Jamie Foxx, Zac Efron, Terry Crews, Snoop Dogg, who not only played the game, but was visibly seen smoking pot as he played it backstage, amongst a few others. Dear EA, gamers don't care about celebrities playing your games. In fact, it's actually worse because we know these celebrities normally don't play them and probably suck at them. We'd rather see real gamers play the game so we can actually get a good idea of the gameplay. Epic fail, you wasted your money and once again proved that you are not in line with what the common gamer wants. Number 8, Project Scorpio from Microsoft. Now, I'm not saying that Project Scorpio is a bad thing. In fact, it's pretty cool that we may now actually have a console that could stand up to high-end PCs and may even be upgradable in the future. But my question is this, why now? Why did Microsoft announce Project Scorpio at E3 2016 when it doesn't even have a release date until holiday of 2017, and they just announced the Xbox One S about an hour earlier in the same exact press conference? Talk about confusion for the common gamer. So if you already have an Xbox One, should you buy the Xbox One S or should you wait for the Scorpio? If you buy an Xbox One S, what do? Do you want to wait for the Scorpio? Should you hold off on even getting an Xbox One altogether? All this did, having so many consoles now available that are all basically the same, is confuse the common consumer into not knowing what to do. In addition, also the fact that game developers are now going to have to make their games so they're compatible with all versions of the Xbox One console. Talk about a big hurdle when you have to make a game compatible with 3 completely different consoles at the same time. It's just going to be extra development, extra woes for game developers. I'm left kind of scratching my head. Now, I know a lot of people actually like the idea of Project Scorpio. For me, if I'm going to get a 4K TV maybe sometime next year, cool, because 4K gaming I'm sure is going to be all the rage. But for right now, I don't see the viability of it, and I have no idea why it was announced so early. It's just going to leave people scratching their heads. Number 7, Troy Baker is cast as the voice of Batman in the new Telltale game series. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on Mr. Baker. He's an amazing voice actor, and there's a reason why AAA game development studios go to him as a go-to guy when they're putting out their biggest and best games. But let's face it, over the past 5 years, Troy has been in almost every high-profile release. I mean, the guy is massively overexposed, and it's gotten to the point that every time that there's a game with him as voice actor, I can pick his voice out instantaneously and say, well, there's Troy Baker, and it almost is jarring and pulls me out of the game experience because I've heard his voice so much. Perfect example here. He did the voice of the Joker in Batman Arkham Origins, and then subsequently ended up being the Joker in many different animated series and such that came out afterward. Now, only a couple years later, he's going to play the opposite role of Batman. Oh, now before you get ahead of me and say, oh, but Phil, Troy's already been the voice of Batman in the Lego series. Okay, fair enough, but that's the Lego series. Let's face it, the mainstream DC Comics fans who are playing all the Batman games know that Kevin Conroy has always kind of been the quintessential Batman ever since the Batman animated series from the 1980s and 90s. Troy Baker being Batman, I don't buy it. To make matters even worse, Laura Bailey is doing the voice of Catwoman. But Laura Bailey also did the lead female role in last year's Tales from the Borderlands, as well as Troy Baker doing the lead male role. So basically what you're telling me now is we have an elitist club of voice actors who, whenever Telltale Games is going to do one of these, they're going to call upon them. I don't like that. I like variety. I'm sure there's thousands of voice actors out there who need work and could probably do a pretty damned good job. I don't want to hear the same people in every single game. This is a pattern that has gone on far too long. I'm sorry, Troy, but I'd like to hear someone else as the role of Batman. This actually turned me off. Number 6, Injustice 2 is going to have an equipment system that will modify character stats. For those of you who don't know, I'm a former professional fighting game player. I was around the block. I know about fighting games and how these things can affect stuff. So when it was announced at E3 this year that there was going to be a equipment system by which random equipment would drop at the end of matches, you could equip this onto your characters to modify their stats, I was left kind of scratching my head. Listen, I know that in tournament scenes, people always want an equal playing field. And I know from the get-go, they will never allow this equipment system. So why does it exist in the game? I don't understand why we need to modify stats. All this does is rewards people who are going to play the game absolutely non-stop at launch week, get the most overpowered gear, and then are going to go online and beat you because they have more damage and more health than you. It's stupid. It's a dumb gimmick. It's been done before in other fighting games, and it's almost always failed miserably. Now, in its defense, Ed Boon was interviewed at E3 and said, don't worry, there are going to be modes where this is disabled, and I'm sure there will be both online gameplay with and without the equipment because people will want to play the game for a tournament setting, and they would never allow this kind of equipment in it. To which I respond, that's great, Ed, but then why does it exist? If you know it's going to make the game unbalanced, don't put it in the game. Just do an outfits system where while playing the game you can unlock different outfits of equipment, maybe new shoulder pads, a new helmet, a new color outfit for a character, or an alternate outfit. That's what gamers want. We don't want things that modify the stats of a competitive game and make it unbalanced. I mean, come on, it's 2016, Ed, you know this stuff. I don't know who's feeding it in your ear that this is a good idea. It's not. We don't want it. It's a dumb thing, and it's just pointless. Number 5, EA and Microsoft both pushing their early access programs down our throat during their respective press conferences. So for those of you who may not have seen the press conferences from these major AAA game studios this past week, both EA and Microsoft are saying they're going to offer early access to exclusive games if you become part of their early access programs. Now, to make matters worse, EA actually charges for their program. It's $5 a month, and you get basically around 10 hours of gameplay of some titles early. For example, Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which was released just a couple weeks ago, ended up getting a 10-hour advanced gameplay thing about a week early for those who were part of this program, and EA has already announced that if you're part of the program, you'll get Battlefield 1 a full week early and be able to play the multiplayer for about 10 hours before you even buy the game. I am strongly against this practice. Everyone should get an equal opportunity and be on an equal footing when it comes to these games. Why do some people who have more money or have some elitist exclusive access be able to play them early? It's bullshit. Everyone should get that opportunity. Maybe if 10 hours are available, then give it to everyone as a free open beta the week before. Don't make people pay to get that access. It's completely ridiculous. It's anti-consumer, and I completely disagree with it. In addition, it actually creates confusion. For example, the upcoming indie release We Happy Few is apparently going to get an advanced release with the Xbox preview program this coming July. But how do you get it? How do you register for the program? How do you properly get in line to do it? There's no information right now on the internet as how to do it. So I really want to play We Happy Few, but I have no idea if I'll actually be able to play the game on this early advance date in July, or if I'm going to have to wait for a formal release date. It's bullshit. You have a release date for a game, release it on the date. You have a demo, release the demo. Don't make it so only certain people can have access at certain times. It's elitist bullshit. Tired of it. Moving on. Number 4, bad virtual reality games on display. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that virtual reality has no uses, and I'm certainly not saying that there won't be any good virtual reality games. But these two particular ones in particular that were on display during the Ubisoft press conference just did not rub me the right way. First of all, Eagle Flight. It's capture the flag. It's something we've seen a million times before. The only difference is you're flying instead of running on the ground. The graphics look terrible. They're all cartoony, they're blotchy, they're almost cel-shaded. It doesn't look like a good game. And even seeing the people play this game is absolutely laughable, where they have to wiggle their heads around in 100 different directions to even keep track with what's going on. The game looks terrible, and it's certainly not anything I'm going to drop a lot of money on VR to play. Now, what about Star Trek virtual reality, where they actually got LeVar Burton and other previous cast members of the Star Trek crew to come out and try the game and actually basically kiss its ass during the E3 conference? Take a look at the graphics. I mean, listen, I know how VR works. It has to run at an incredibly high frame rate, far above 60 frames per second, for it to actually look realistic when you have that VR headset on. But that means that apparently some of these game developers are going to have to massively dumb down the graphical detail of their games in order to get it to work. But just take a look at the bridge. It looks like crap. It looks like an early, maybe mid-2000s or even 1990s PC game. I just am not sold on spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for a great VR setup to experience this kind of a game. Listen, it could have the best gameplay ever, so I could be completely off base here, but these two games did not look good and certainly did zero to sell me on virtual reality at E3 this year. Number 3, the Final Fantasy XV gameplay demo during the Microsoft press conference. Now, I'm certainly not saying that there wasn't tons of great gameplay of Final Fantasy XV on display this week. In fact, it's quite the contrary. But if you only watch the major press conferences, the demo that they decided to do live at the Microsoft one was less than impressive. In this fight, it was basically the main character taking on the giant Titan summon creature. And all that happened was Titan basically pimp-slapped the living shit out of this player on stage for about a minute straight until finally he mashed a button, randomly got a hit in, and then the whole fight just ended. It made no sense, and it basically made it look like the guy had no idea how to play the game and that the boss fight was terrible. I'm sure if you actually knew how to do the boss fight, it would have been a lot better. Apparently this guy wasn't prepared or just had the jimmies up there. Maybe he was just so nervous he didn't know what he was doing. But sorry, seeing one get their ass handed to them as a demo of gameplay at E3 is not exactly what I would consider great promotion. It looked terrible, and I hope that that guy recovers. Number 2, EA once again doesn't understand what its consumers want by focusing on sports games and esports at its press conference. Now, for those of you who did not see the EA press conference earlier this week, it lasted about an hour long. And no exaggeration, about 20 to 30 minutes of that press conference was exclusively spent on Madden 17, FIFA 17, and esports. Half of the press conference was for one type of game that most people watching E3 don't give two shits about. I'm sorry, I've said this for every year. that people who watch E3 are tuning in to find out about a wide variety of games. The person who's watching all the E3 press conferences is either in gaming journalism or they're a hardcore gamer who want to see a wide variety of information. This is not the opportunity for EA to try to advertise to the sports gamers. Now let's face it, sports gaming is huge. In fact, FIFA is EA's hugest title, making them the most money every single year, and Madden is no slouch either. But the bottom line is this: those people aren't watching E3. They're going to buy those games every year regardless because they're huge fans of those sports. And then the new focus this year was on esports, that EA was going to start their own competitive leagues, and then they literally spent 5 to 10 minutes profiling 2 players who are supposedly the 2 top Madden players in the United States, and they were so fucking boring. One kid, unfortunately, he could be the nicest guy and the best Madden player on the planet, but he's overweight and he's sitting here in a gaming chair and he is just embarrassing as supposed to be the face of gaming to the mainstream. The other kid has a marble mouth and basically had absolutely nothing interesting to say, mumbling the entire time. It just wasn't interesting to anyone. It was a complete waste of time. It sold no copies of Madden. EA needs to get their shit together and realize that E3 is the time to advertise to the hardcore gamers, and your press conference is the time to show a wide variety of stuff, not to only focus on 2 to 3 things for half the conference that no one watching cares about. You're gonna sell those games anyway. Focus on advertising other stuff, you dummies. Number 1, the worst thing at E3 this year was actually something that didn't happen. That's right, the new Modern Warfare remaster is still packaged with Infinite Warfare. Yeah, and you might say, that's bullshit, this isn't really something that happened to E3, but I'm sorry, the absence of something at E3, in my opinion, is just as bad, if not worse, than something that did happen. And the big controversy amongst gamers over the past several months was the announcement that a Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare remaster was going to be created and released simultaneously with Call of Duty Infinite Warfare later this year, but that it would only be available as a bundled purchase with a more expensive version of that game and would not be available as an individual purchase. When this was announced, especially paired with the fact that most people have become incredibly critical of the gameplay of Infinite Warfare, saying it looks like crap, fighting in space is left for Halo and it shouldn't be part of the Call of Duty series, and a lot of people who buy Call of Duty every year are basically saying, I'm skipping it this year, including me. The big hoopla on the internet has been, make Modern Warfare a separate purchase. This was the perfect time for Activision and Infinity Ward to listen to gamers and release it for even $20 to $30. I think tons of people would have bought it as a separate purchase, way more than those who are going to forcibly buy Infinite Warfare just to get this as a bundled deal. If anything, what's going to end up happening is gamers are going to be pissed the hell off and they're just not going to buy it. Or maybe they'll buy it and they'll try to immediately trade in Infinite Warfare but keep the code for Modern Warfare. I don't know. For a game that almost is in universally high regard as one of the best, if not the best, first-person shooters ever, I want the opportunity to play it without having to buy a $60 train wreck of a game that looks terrible. I should have the power as a consumer. I shouldn't be forced into purchases by Activision. It's, again, anti-consumer. It's bullshit. E3 2016 was the perfect opportunity for them to remedy their greed, and they did not. It's gonna blow up in their faces, and they're gonna be sorry, but oh well, it's too late now. Well, that's it for my personal picks of the worst things at E3 this year. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a like here on YouTube. And if you agree or disagree, leave a comment. Let everyone know your thoughts on what you thought about E3 this year and what you personally disliked. Please check out the description of the video where you can find a link to my Amazon Associate account as well as my Patreon at patreon.com/DarksidePhil. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time for another fun countdown. Peace out.